Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Sam Priestley, and as always, I'm joined with my lovely wife, Emma.
Hello!
Today we're going to talk about something we touched on very briefly in the last episode, which is building a scalable business. That is how to make sure your business is scalable right from the word go. I want to talk about this for a couple of reasons. First off is that a lot of businesses that people start in their basement or in their garage that look like they're great businesses and work really well, owner-operated, with you doing all the work, don't actually make sense when scaled up. And the other reason is that this is a trap that a lot of people fall into. There's this idea that we have of economies of scale, that as you grow, you're going to save money, and that whatever margin you've got now, you might not be making much money, but as soon as you grow the business, you're going to start making a lot more. Well, that is true in some cases, but for the stuff we're going to be talking about today, that's not the case. And this is really because a lot of the things we're going to be looking into is where you're doing work yourself that you're not taking into account, that you're not kind of including in the cost for your business and in the margins that you're attributing to the items you're selling. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Great. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to run through a few examples of kind of businesses we both have experiences with or that we've looked into in the past. But before we start, I want to say that most of the problems with businesses not being scalable is due to a margin issue, is that people are pricing their stuff too low. And that's an easy problem to solve. Just make sure that, like, even if you don't listen to the rest of this and you don't want to sort of do the deep research to make sure your business is long-term scalable, just build in a stinkingly huge margin. It's one that's, large enough that you probably feel a little bit uncomfortable about the business. That it feels like that if you told someone, you might be a little bit embarrassed. Because once you start adding in all the costs that actually go around the business and the stuff that you probably haven't anticipated or can't anticipate, if you don't, you'll probably end up making no money. So to start off with, probably the most common example of a basement business, and one that school kids and sort of wannabe entrepreneurs are starting all over the place, and that is a T-shirt printing business. It's very simple to get started. All you need is a plain T-shirt. You can get a Gildan soft style, and Gildan is the sort of biggest brand of plain T-shirts. That you get some transfer paper. They cost about 50p a sheet, and you have an iron. You kind of stick it in your printer at home. You draw your design on, you print it out, and then you kind of iron it on. So all in all, your T-shirt, your finished product T-shirt, is only costing you about £2.50. You can get a Gildan soft style T-shirt for about £2 on Amazon. Transfer papers, about 50p, £2.50 a T-shirt. So let's say you're selling it. Like, what would be a good margin for that? Maybe you're selling it for £15 a T-shirt.
I was going to say £15 sounds good.
£15, that's still a big margin, You're making £12.50 out of that. Sounds like you're doing great. And that's where a lot of people start. Maybe they'll be doing it for less, maybe selling it for £10 because they feel like they can't justify selling for that much. After all, it's a T-shirt that any old person can go to Amazon and buy for £2.50. And all you've done is put your artwork on it. Maybe your artwork is worth that extra £12.50. So let's talk about what this business looks like as a scaled up. And by scaled up, I'm talking about a business that is effectively infinitely scalable, one that doesn't involve your time and where kind of every portion of the process is outsourced or you're paying people to do for you. So how would you do that? Well, first of all, you probably start off by building an online store, somewhere to buy it. Then you're going to find someone to actually do the T-shirt printing for you. But for them, it's not just going to be T-shirt printing. They're also going to have to find a sort of bag to put it in. They probably want to get rid of that little Gildan label in the back so people don't know you're just selling a generic T-shirt, and replace it as some brand that you've come up with. And then you're going to need someone to sew it up as well. Then you also got to think about returns and wastage. People might not like it and might send it back. And once someone's worn it, you can't just put it back in a bag and sell it on again. So you're going to lose a few T-shirts at that point. Then you've got to talk about where you're going to store it. It's fine if you're storing it in your basement, but at some point your mum or girlfriend or wife is going to get a bit frustrated with all the boxes of T-shirts lying around.
Sounds familiar. Table tennis bats.
Sounds familiar. We've kind of got a garage full of gin and table tennis equipment. And so you're going to find some sort of warehouse or fulfillment service that's going to be able to deal with that for you. You're going to have to pay them to warehouse it, and then you're also going to pay them to pick and pack and ship it out. And I'm not even including the delivery charge here. Let's say you're charging that on top. So you're charging your £15 for your T-shirt, and then whatever the delivery cost is, maybe another £3 to £5. But, you know, you've got a little bit of economies of scale, so your T-shirt might be a little bit cheaper. Well, so this is not a random example. This is something I've actually looked into in quite a lot of detail and got all the exact quotes for a few years back. So the numbers might be slightly out of date, but the concept is correct. That is, your T-shirt is about £2 to pay someone to do a screen print for you. That's about £1 to get your own label done to go in the back at the collar. That's another 35p. To pay someone to pick and sew it for you, that's about £1.25. For them to bag it up is about 25p. And then for them to deliver it to your warehouse, it's probably about another 10p a T-shirt. Then your online fees for running a website is going to be about 50p a sale. Your warehouse, you're probably going to have to pay around 30p in storage charges. The pick and pack fee is going to be about £1.85. Returns, I kind of put in an idea of about 75p. Same for wastage, another 75p. So all in all, we end up with the total cost being about £10.50 on a sale price of £15.
Whoa, that's quite different to £2.50.
That's quite different to £2.50. That's an extra... Well, it's way more than whatever the T-shirt is worth and all the printing. Still selling for £15. But you're still making £4.40 something. That sounds alright, doesn't it?
What about the marketing?
Well, marketing, exactly. That's not your only cost, is it? How are you going to get your sales? So, there's a few other ones. There's marketing, and then the other big one is VAT. Once your business grows past a certain point, suddenly the taxman wants to take a big chunk. In the UK here, it's once you get to £80,000 of sales. Well, you might think your T-shirt business will never reach £80,000 of sales. But bear in mind, if you want this to be a business that pays you a salary, that's £80,000 in turnover, not £80,000 in profit. So let's say for every £15 T-shirt, you're making £5. That's a third. So for 80,000 turnover, you need to be doing, my maths ain't that good, £25,000 or something in profit. Well, £25,000 is about kind of the basic salary that a lot of people start on here in the UK. So if you wanted this to be a big business or one that kind of grows, you're probably going to hit that VAT threshold. And what does that mean? That means that you get to reclaim a little bit of some of the other costs, but then the VAT man is taking a big chunk. So I want to take that into account. For marketing, I've looked at kind of what I normally do for marketing. I've worked out it probably cost me about £1.20 per sale of a T-shirt. So after all that, your costs suddenly get to £13.86 on a £15 sale price.
Getting pretty close to £15.
So your profit would be £1.14.
Oh, ouch.
So at that point, it's just not worth it. You're gonna, in order to make any money at all, you're gonna be having to sell thousands and thousands of these T-shirts. Yeah, you can put the price up. Let's say you put it up to £25. Now you're starting to think, is it justified? Is this £2 T-shirt that I'm reselling for £25 worth it? Like, maybe not. So we actually decided not to do this business, and we went a slightly different route. We found that's the other thing. If you plan out a business like this, taking it from like the basement stage and just seeing what happens if you scale it up, and you will realise it doesn't work, then you can look for another approach and another way to do it, which is what we did here. What I'm going to do is on my blog, I'm going to post all these numbers. It's a post I wrote a few years ago. It's one of my favourites that a lot of people haven't read because it's quite old, and I think you'll find it really interesting and really useful.
What's that blog post called?
Creating and Scaling a T-shirt Business. Mm-hmm. That's probably why no one read it, because it's such a boring title.
But very practical.
Very practical, and it's very applicable to a lot of things, because I kind of go through each logical step. What does the cost of adding an online store, but doing the rest of the stuff yourself? What's the cost of doing the fulfillment, but doing the rest yourself? And just work through it with examples and pictures and all that kind of thing. As I said, I think it's a very good post, but it didn't get much love at the time. But let's leave T-shirt businesses for the moment, because you might be thinking that's a bit of a weird example. You don't want to start a T-shirt business. And let's talk about another type of online business that a lot of people want to start. and have started, including you, Emma.
Ooh.
This is freelancing. You did freelance marketing back when you first quit your job.
I did, yes.
As we started travelling, you did freelance marketing. One of the big problems that people... not problems. One of the ways that people work out their pricing when starting freelancing is they think to themselves, well, what did I get paid when I was working a full-time job? What was my hourly rate then? Then they add a little bit, and then that's what they charge for their freelancing.
Well, that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. But you can see why they think it. They're like, this is how much a person is worth. Why would they know any differently?
Yeah.
Because your whole life you've been in this hourly wage environment. Even when you're doing casual work, you're still getting paid these low hourly wages. So you might be thinking, well, when I was working, I was getting paid £15 an hour, so let's bump that up. Let's pay myself £20 an hour. Problem is, that doesn't include any of the time spent looking for jobs.
Yeah.
It doesn't include any of the free work around it. Let's say you're doing like a free consultancy or something. Or if there's problems the client isn't happy with and they want you to make changes and aren't willing to pay for it. And probably most relevant to what we're talking about here, it doesn't leave you any room to scale.
Yeah.
Because you can't outsource any of that work. Because in order for you to outsource any work, you've got to find someone who's willing to do it for less than that.
Yeah.
And how many people who are good are you going to find on that? There's a reason why law firms charge out rates are huge. If you you've got any friends who are kind of trainee lawyers or recently, I don't know what you call them, recently finished their training contract and are now proper lawyers, ask them what their charge out rate is. It'll probably be, I don't know, £300, £400, £500, depending on the quality of the firm they're in. An hour, I'm talking about. And then ask them, what do they get paid an hour?
Yeah.
And the answer will probably be something like £12. A lot of them actually are on less than minimum wage when you take into account the hours.
Yes.
But there's a reason that there's that big a difference. It's because they're part of this scalable business, which has now grown into a huge law firm. If it was just a one-man business charging what he thought he was worth, which is going to be a lot more than that £12.50, but it's not going to be anywhere near £400, £500, then there's no way to scale it. And it just happens that in law, people have got used to those prices and it's acceptable. Same with consulting. You used to work at PwC. They rent out their grads for, whatever, £200 an hour or something.
Yeah. And
pay them basically minimum wage.
Yeah, pretty much. And the partners would be on a lot more. And
the partners who get a share in this lovely built outsourced business are getting the chunk of that change.
Yeah.
Which is great. So that's freelancing. You gotta just charge. Again, it's the whole point of this. Just have a stinkily big margin. If we'd started off with the t-shirts not being £15 but £25, it would still be a really good business.
Yeah.
If we started the freelancing charging £50 an hour instead of £20 an hour, it would still be a good business.
Well, effectively, that's what I did, didn't I? And the feedback was that actually I stood out amongst other freelancers because I was actually a freelance in marketing strategy and I was competing against people in, say, India charging $10 an hour and I was charging $75 an hour. So automatically those clients could see there was a big pay gap and they would look into my credentials and my background and my feedback and tell me that they've gone with me because I provide more value.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of reasons why it's good to charge a lot. One of them is that we're used to attributing a price to quality, price to value.
Yeah.
So if you're charging £5 an hour, they think there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
If you're charging £200 an hour, they think you must be worth £200 an hour. I can't remember who said it, but I was reading this the other day that in the art world, in galleries, they say that if your paintings haven't sold, double the price, because there's certain people who are looking in a certain price bracket and they just, even if it's a painting they like, they just ignore it because to them it doesn't have that value to it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Wow. And
there's loads of examples of that. There was again from another book, which I can't remember what book it was talking about an example of a jewellery shop where they mistakenly doubled the price of everything instead of halving it because they couldn't sell their stock and they thought they should halve it, and yeah, they doubled it and sold out really quickly.
Wow.
There's all sorts of things like that. There's a certain anyway, but that's kind of outside the remit of what we're talking about here. I'm talking about if you don't have big margin, then you can't scale your business. Whereas there are actually other reasons why you should charge a lot of money.
Yes.
Let's talk briefly about the same principle when it comes to Amazon FBA, which is a very popular topic at the moment and one we've done a previous podcast on. Again, a lot of people ask how much margin should you have, and my answer is often like a lot more than you think. For instance, if you found the item you could buy for £5 and sell on Amazon for £15, you're probably going to lose money on that. Going to cost you £1 to get it into the Amazon warehouse. It's going to cost, I'm talking about if you're buying it from China, it's going to cost you another £1 in import duty. It's going to cost you about £2.25 on Amazon fees, another £2.50 on pick and pack, and then another £2.50 on VAT. And then once you add in returns and all the other stuff around it, including like warehouse and long-term storage fees and things like that, you're probably losing money. And finally, the final example I want to talk about is one of my favourite topics. One I would actually like to do a kind of research dissertation on, because it's something I believe strongly and I haven't been able to find much data to back it up. And that is on owner-operated small local businesses, such as coffee shops, off-licenses, restaurants, places like that, where the owner is doing most of the work. They've built themselves a business that is making money, but that's only making money when they don't take into account their own salary.
Yeah.
You've got to remember, there's no minimum wage when you're self-employed. And I've met countless small business owners who are trapped in these businesses because they've invested quite a lot of money. Let's say you own an off-license, and you spend £20,000 on the stock in there. The only way to get rid of that stock is to sell it. The only way to sell it is for you to stand behind that counter selling it. And yeah, I've met so many people who are earning £2 an hour, £3 an hour, working ridiculous hours because they're trapped on this treadmill they've got to run on. And same, you can't just wait until you sell all that stock, because if you go into an off license and there's only 3 things on the shelves, THREE, a handful of items on the shelves, you're probably going to walk out. In order for them to sell, they've got to have a full shop, and so they end up on this treadmill. And it's because when they started doing that, and they go, "Oh, we're making money," even though they're working really hard
for free, basically.
I fell into this trap a little bit with our coffee shop, Their Own Coffee. We built that as an outsourced business from the get-go. We priced in a general manager who was running it. I didn't need to be there working on it at all. But what I kind of didn't appreciate was there's quite a bit of like other stuff that goes around that did take up our time, and that it wasn't really in the general manager's remit. It's not just a day-to-day running. Stuff like strategy, stuff like new products, stuff like HR, stuff like marketing. There's kind of a bunch of things that, even if you're not working full time, you've got to spend. Does take up quite a lot of time.
Yeah, you've got to keep on top of it.
There's an owner-operated business at the bottom of my road. I've no idea how they're doing, but maybe every month or so, he shows me a new menu he's working on, and the menu never appears.
Nope.
And I ask him why, and the answer is because he's too busy
with all the other stuff.
Working behind the counter, making coffees. I mean, he's got plenty of staff, but when you're dealing with short-term, part-time staff, there's a good chance they're not going to turn up, or you're going to be short-handed, and you're going to have to get behind that coffee machine and actually do. And
there's a lot of training involved.
There's a lot of training work, and there's a lot of recruiting. There's a lot of other stuff. So there you go. How to make sure your business is scalable. Simple answer: build in a huge profit margin. And if it doesn't look like the business, if you think nobody's going to buy this product with this huge profit margin, it's probably not a good business. You probably need to look into something else. And it's as bad as that. Anything to add, Emma?
I don't think so. I think when you're saying that about make sure you're baking in a huge profit margin, it makes me think that the product or service has got to have something unique about it and stand out. So whether it's the design of the product, whether it's the features, whether it's the quality of the service.
Indeed, like there's two angles you've got to think about here. One is, in order for this business to work from a logistics point of view, it needs to have a big margin. But just because it works logistically doesn't mean it's going to work as a business.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anyone wants to buy it.
So I could bake in a huge profit margin. We could sell our gin for £1,000 a bottle.
Yes.
We're not going to sell any. We might sell a bottle.
Yeah.
Might sell one bottle.
Yeah.
But that's it.
It's not scalable at that price.
It's not. Well, it's a very scalable business logistically,
But not commercially.
But and this is the balancing act you're having to pay is what. And if it turned out that we couldn't price it at a level which would give us a big enough margin to cover all the scalability stuff that people would still buy it at, we'd probably have to not do it.
Yeah.
And I'm only saying, when I say a huge profit margin, if you've worked out all this scalability stuff, then you don't need to do this. But if you're starting from, this is my time I'm putting in, I don't really know how much my time is worth,
And this is how much the raw product costs to produce.
This is how much the raw product costs, blah, blah, blah. If you're just looking at it from raw product to sale price...
Yeah. There's a lot in between.
Yeah. If you look at it from little freelance team, the price you pay an employee versus the price you rent them out, there's got to be a huge margin there. Because there's loads of hidden costs and hidden things that you probably haven't appreciated. Alright, a nice, quick, short episode, but one I think is very important. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that problem I think that a lot of small businesses have, which I'm going to call, I don't know, something like the small business owner's dilemma or the trap of small business, or something like that. Maybe you'll see that published somewhere at some point if I ever get around to researching it properly. But apart from that, we're getting close to Christmas, so if you don't hear from us before then, have a very Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Happy Christmas.
And we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.